The lab environment is hazardous by nature. The actual risk is largely determined by you and those working with you. It's your responsibility to know and follow the rules and be able to recognize potential safety hazards. The first consideration is proper dress. What you wear in the lab can help prevent serious, even fatal injuries. Often, you'll be working with chemicals that could harm you if they come into contact with your skin. The best way to prevent skin exposure is to wear clothes that cover your entire body. Shorts and sandals leave your skin exposed, so instead, wear long pants and closed-toe shoes. Remove jewelry before entering the lab and tie back long hair. Bring only the things that you need into the lab. Leave all personal items like backpacks, purses, cell phones, and jackets outside or in your locker so they don't become contaminated. Now that you're properly dressed for the lab, let's take a look at personal protective equipment, or PPE. For general lab work, a lab coat and safety glasses or goggles are required. Lab coat should be fully buttoned with the sleeves covering your entire arm. Gloves are required when handling hazardous chemicals and hot or cold items. When working with particularly hazardous chemicals with a high likeliness of a splash hazard, the use of a chemical apron and safety goggles or face shield is recommended. When working with hazardous samples or reagents, and especially hot or cold items, you should always wear protective gloves. Be sure to choose the most appropriate type. You need gloves that are resistant to the chemicals you'll be handling. These gloves are non-absorbent. Even so, chemicals can leach through over time, so it's a good idea to change your gloves and wash your hands frequently, especially if they've come into contact with chemicals. Thermal and puncture-resistant gloves are used for handling extremely hot or cold materials, such as when using an autoclave, oven, or furnace, handling dry ice, or handling sharps. Some chemicals produce dangerous vapors, both when opened or when combined with other chemicals. The use of a fume hood is required when working with these types of chemicals. If the use of reagents or samples presents a biological hazard, a biological safety cabinet is required. Always remove PPE and wash your hands before leaving the lab and entering public areas. Be aware that you can spread chemical or biological contamination by touching items such as light switches, doorknobs, or even phones while your gloves are still on. Dressing for the lab and wearing personal protective equipment will minimize the risk for exposure or harm. But clothing and PPE aren't enough to keep you safe.